Most people think millionaires are rich because they earn more. Wrong. A Ramsey Solutions study surveyed over 10,000 American millionaires. What they found completely dismantles everything you think you know about wealth. 93% of them attributed their net worth to hard work and disciplined financial habits, not inheritance, not lucky investments, not six-figure salaries. 93%. Let that number sink in. And here's what makes that statistic even more striking. Teaching was among the top 5 careers of millionaires surveyed, not investment banking, not tech. Teaching. The people building real, lasting wealth in this country aren't always the ones with the biggest paychecks. They're the ones with the best habits. That changes everything about how you should be thinking about money. Because if wealth is primarily a behavior, not an income level, then the gap between where you are today and where you want to be isn't a salary problem, it's a habits problem. And habits can be changed. The 5 things I'm about to share aren't theories. They're the documented, researched, consistently repeated behaviors of people who built wealth from scratch. People with ordinary incomes and extraordinary discipline. You don't need a raise to start doing any of this. You need a decision. I've studied what separates people who build real wealth from people who just earn money for decades and have nothing to show for it. And the difference is almost never what you'd expect. It's not intelligence. It's not opportunity. It's not even income. The research is remarkably consistent on this. The behaviors that produce wealth are learnable, repeatable, available to almost anyone willing to apply them with consistency. Here's what I want you to understand before we get into the 5 ways. Most people will watch this and think, yes, that makes sense. They'll nod along. They'll feel motivated for about 48 hours. And then life will get in the way and nothing will change. But if you implement even 2 or 3 of these consistently, not perfectly, consistently, your financial life 5 years from now will look dramatically different from your financial life today. Not because of magic, because of math and time. Some of what I'm about to share will feel almost too simple. That's intentional. The habits of wealthy people aren't complicated. They're just uncommon. And the reason they're uncommon isn't because they're hard to understand. It's because they require you to behave differently than almost everyone around you. That's the real challenge. Not the knowledge, the behavior. You don't need to do all 5 of these perfectly starting tomorrow. Pick the one that hits closest to home. Start there. Build from that foundation. Here's the first one. Here's how most people handle money. The paycheck arrives, rent gets paid, groceries, car payment, utilities, subscriptions, dinner's out. And then, if anything is left at the end of the month, maybe something goes into savings. Maybe. This is called paying yourself last. And it's the reason most people reach the end of their working years with almost nothing saved. Not because they didn't earn enough, because they treated their future self as the lowest financial priority in their life. Millionaires do the exact opposite. Before the rent, before the groceries, before any bill gets paid, a percentage of every paycheck goes directly into savings and investments. Automatically, without negotiation, without exception. The future self gets paid first. Everyone else gets what's left. This concept has a name. It's called reverse budgeting. And it is one of the most consistently documented habits among self-made wealthy people. Here's why it works so powerfully. When you save what's left over, you're fighting human psychology every single month. You're asking yourself to choose future security over present comfort. And present comfort almost always wins. The car needs new tires. There's a sale happening. A friend's birthday dinner. An unexpected bill. Something always absorbs the money that was supposed to be saved. But when the money moves before you ever see it, before it lands in your checking account, the psychology flips completely. You don't miss what you never had access to. You adjust your spending to whatever remains, and your future self gets funded automatically whether you feel like it or not. This is not a new idea, but the way millionaires implement it is more aggressive than most people realize. The average person saves somewhere around 4.9% of their income. Millionaires in the making typically target 20% to 25% of gross income directed towards savings and investments before a single discretionary dollar gets spent. Not 10%, not 15%, 22, 25%. That sounds impossible for most people. And for some right now, it genuinely is. But here's how to start. Calculate 1% of your monthly take-home pay. Just 1%. Set up an automatic transfer on payday before you touch anything else into a separate savings or investment account. Do it today, not this weekend. Today. After 60 days, increase it to 2%, then 3%. Most people find that after the first increase, they barely notice the difference because you adapt to what you have. Human beings are remarkably good at adjusting their spending to their available income. And that same adaptability works in your favor when you automate savings first. Let me show you what this looks like in real numbers over time. Two people. Same $65,000 salary. Same expenses. Same life. Person A saves whatever is left at the end of the month. Some months that's $200. Some months it's zero. Over a year, they average $150 a month saved. Over 20 years at 7% returns, they accumulate approximately $78,000. Person B sets up an automatic transfer of 15%, $812 a month on payday. They adjust their spending to the remaining income. Some months feel tight, but the transfer never stops. Over 20 years at the same 7% return, they accumulate approximately $510,000. Same salary, same 20 years. The gap between them is $432,000, created entirely by the order in which they handled their money. Pay yourself first isn't just a budgeting tip. It's a declaration that your financial future matters more than your present convenience. Every millionaire who built wealth without inheriting it made that declaration at some point. Most of them made it early, but paying yourself first only works if you know exactly where your money is going in the first place. And that brings us to the second habit, the one most people consider boring, but that every serious wealth builder treats as non-negotiable. Ask most people if they have a budget and they'll say yes. Ask them what they spent on food last month, on entertainment, on subscriptions, on things they bought impulsively and barely remember. And the answer gets fuzzy very quickly. That's not a budget. That's a guess with good intentions. Here's something worth understanding about how millionaires think about money. They treat their personal finances exactly like a business treats its finances. Every dollar that comes in is accounted for. Every dollar that goes out has a purpose. Nothing moves without intention. No successful business operates on vibes. No profitable company looks at its bank account at the end of the month and hopes there's something left. They have projections, they have allocations, they have a plan that gets reviewed, adjusted, and followed with discipline. Your household is a business. Your income is revenue. Your expenses are costs. And right now, most people are running their business without ever looking at the numbers. Here's what that costs you in practice. The average household wastes between $200 and $300 per month on forgotten subscriptions, unused memberships, and mindless spending that delivers almost no real value. That's $2,400 to $3,600 per year. Invested at 7% annual returns over 20 years, that number becomes somewhere between $124,000 and $186,000. You're not just losing $25 a month on a streaming service you forgot about. You're losing $13,000 over 20 years from that single subscription. That's what financial invisibility actually costs. Millionaires don't let money disappear into the invisible. They know exactly where every dollar goes because they decided in advance where every dollar goes. But here's the part that surprises most people about how wealthy individuals budget. They don't restrict themselves. They allocate. There's a fundamental psychological difference between those two words. Restriction feels like punishment. Allocation feels like control. When you restrict, you're fighting against your desires every single day. When you allocate, you've already decided, deliberately, calmly, in advance, how much goes to each area of your life. And then you spend that amount freely, without guilt, because it was planned. You get to spend $400 on dining out this month. Not because you caved, because you decided. That shift from restriction to intention is what makes wealthy people's budgets sustainable for decades instead of collapsing after 3 weeks. Here's the practical framework that works. Before the month begins, not during, before, write down every expected dollar of income. Then allocate every single dollar to a category. Fixed expenses first, savings and investments second, then variable spending. The goal is that every dollar has a name before the month starts. $0 unaccounted for. This is called a zero-based budget. Every dollar gets assigned a job. Nothing floats. 2 people. Same $5,000 monthly take-home pay. Person A spends reactively. They cover their bills, use their card for everything else, and check their balance when they're nervous. By the end of the month, they've spent $4,800 but couldn't tell you where $1,200 of it went. Person B allocates in advance $1,500 rent, $600 food, $750 savings and investments, $300 transportation, $400 dining and entertainment, $200 miscellaneous, $250 toward debt. Every dollar named, every category tracked. After 10 years, Person B has made $127,000 in intentional investment contributions. Person A made roughly $61,000 in scattered, inconsistent savings. The gap isn't income, it's intention. The budget isn't the boring part of building wealth. It's the foundation everything else is built on. Without it, every other financial habit eventually leaks. And speaking of leaks, the third habit of millionaires is the one that shocks most people the most. Because it directly contradicts the lifestyle they assumed wealthy people were living. Here's the image most people have of a millionaire. Luxury car, designer clothes, big house, expensive watches. A lifestyle that announces wealth at every turn. Here's the reality. 90% of millionaires drive cars that cost less than $75,000. And 86% of people who drive traditionally prestigious brands are not millionaires. Motley fool. The people performing wealth and the people actually building it are almost never the same people. And the single biggest reason for that gap is debt. Think about what debt actually does to your financial life. Every dollar you owe to someone else is a dollar that cannot work for you. Every interest payment you make is wealth transferred directly out of your pocket and into a bank's profit margin. Every car payment, every credit card balance carried month to month, every buy now, pay later plan is a leak in your financial foundation that silently drains your ability to build anything lasting. The math on debt is brutal, and most people never actually run it. The average credit card in the United States charges between 20% and 24% annual interest. That means if you carry a $5,000 balance on a credit card for 5 years making minimum payments, you don't pay back $5,000. You pay back approximately $8,300. You spent $3,300 to borrow your own future money. And that $3,300 didn't just disappear. It disappeared and took the compounding growth it could have generated with it. $3,300 invested at 7% annual returns over 20 years becomes approximately $12,700. That's the real cost of that credit card balance, not $3,300 in interest. $12,700 in lost future wealth. Millionaires understand this math instinctively. That's why outside of mortgages on their homes, self-made millionaires make it a priority to reduce and eliminate all debt. CNBC no car loans, no credit card balances carried month to month, no financing plans on furniture or electronics. Now here's the contrarian truth that makes people uncomfortable. Avoiding debt doesn't mean avoiding credit cards entirely. Millionaires often use credit cards kind of for the rewards, the purchase protections, the cashback. But there's one rule they never break. They pay the full balance every single month, without exception. They use the card like a debit card with benefits. The moment you carry a balance, you've turned a financial tool into a financial trap. Here's what debt freedom actually feels like in practice. Person A earns $6,000 a month. They have a $450 car payment, $380 in credit card minimum payments, $200 in personal loan payments. That's $1,030 a month, $12,360 a year, going directly to lenders before a single dollar goes toward their future. Person B earns the same $6,000 a month. No car payment, no credit card debt, no personal loans. That same $1,030 goes into investments every month instead. After 15 years, Person B has approximately $322,000 in investments. Person A has a paid-off car that's worth $4,000 and a feeling that money is always tight? Because it is. The income was identical. The debt made the difference. But here's what nobody talks about when it comes to debt and wealth building. Getting out of debt is not the goal. Staying out of debt is the goal. The most dangerous moment in anyone's financial journey is the month after they pay off their last credit card. Because that freed up cash flow suddenly feels like a raise. And without a plan for where it goes next, lifestyle inflation quietly absorbs every dollar that debt used to consume. Millionaires redirect that money immediately into investments, into savings, into building something that compounds over time. They never let freed cash flow disappear into upgraded spending. Debt is the opposite of wealth. Every dollar you owe is a dollar working against you. Every dollar you own free and clear is a dollar that can work for you. The fastest way to build wealth isn't finding better investments. It's stopping the bleeding first, and once you've stopped the bleeding, once your income is yours to direct instead of someone else's to collect, the fourth habit is where real wealth acceleration begins. Here's the investing mistake that costs ordinary people hundreds of thousands of dollars. They wait for the perfect moment. They watch the market. They read the headlines. They listen to experts predict what's coming next. They wait for the right signal, the dip, the recovery, the clear sign that now is the time. And while they wait, the market keeps moving, time keeps passing, and compounding keeps rewarding the people who stopped waiting and started doing. Research shows it takes 20 to 30 years on average to become a millionaire. Not 20 to 30 years of brilliant timing. 20 to 30 years of consistent, boring, automatic investing, month after month, regardless of what the headlines say. Here's what the data actually shows about market timing. If you invested $10,000 in the S&P 500 in 2003 and left it untouched for 20 years, you'd have approximately $64,000 by 2023. But if you missed just the 10 best trading days during those 20 years, 10 days out of more than 5,000, your $10,000 would have grown to only $29,000. The best days in the market almost always happen during the worst periods, right after crashes, right in the middle of panic. The people who stayed invested captured those days. The people who moved to cash missed them entirely. So millionaires don't try to time anything. They invest on a schedule. Same amount, same day, every month. Whether the market is up, down, or sideways. Two people. Same $400 a month to invest. Person A invests consistently every single month for 30 years at a 7% average return. Never stops. Never tries to time anything. Final balance. Approximately $486,000. Person B tries to time the market, sits out during uncertainty, misses about 20% of potential investing months over 30 years. Final balance. Approximately $312,000. The gap is $174,000. Not from better stock picks, simply from showing up every single month. Start with whatever you have. $50 a month. $100, $200. The amount matters far less than the habit, because the habit is what scales over time. And that brings us to the final way. The one most financial content skips entirely. Remember where we started. 93% of millionaires built their wealth through disciplined habits. Not inheritance, not luck, not a salary that made everything easy. Through 5 things you now understand completely. Paying themselves first, budgeting with intention, avoiding debt, investing consistently, and protecting what they built. None of these require a high income. None require a finance degree. Just a decision to behave differently than most people around you. The person you are 5 years from now will be built entirely by the habits you choose today. Not the ones you plan to start someday. The ones you actually start now. Wealth was never about how much you earn. It was always about what you do with what you have.